5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hello and welcome to Truth, Beer, and Podsequences. So this is the podcast where my co-hosts and I listen to all the Cincinnati-based craft beer podcasts from the previous week. Then we give our version of the truth of how those podcasts went. Now, hopefully there aren't too many consequences from the hosts of the other podcasts. We are lucky to be back at our gracious podcast host, Higher Gravity Summit Park. Thank you, Higher Gravity Summit Park, for being a fantastic podcast host. Now, my name is Marco. I am a taproom manager here locally, and I'm about to introduce the best co-host in Podcastlandia.
I am Julia. I am a drinker of all the things craft beer and craft just drinks in general in Cincinnati. I like to make lists that are pages and pages long of all of these Cincinnati craft beer events that are coming up that we let you know about in our 0.5 episodes that come out every Wednesday. I make funny beer posts during beer event season, and I absolutely love marble racing, especially Yella's Marble Racing. That's Jelle. Look it up on YouTube. Shout out to producer Adam here at Higher Gravity tonight, who, in anticipation of the FC Cincinnati game that's on tonight, he has YouTube up, and we are watching sand marble racing.
Yeah.
So I apologize in advance if I get distracted and start screaming about the Rangers or the Green Ducks or the cats, the crazy cat's eyes. Marco is, I don't want to say always disappointed in me somehow.
No. I'm sure the commentary makes it's a big part of the experience.
It really is. Just like watching it on mute, you'd really don't get the same
Or listening to this
effect.
podcast on mute.
This is true. You could listen to the podcast on mute and have just as good of a time as with audio. Please don't try that. Please actually
Just as
listen.
good a time.
Please actually listen and like, share, subscribe, review. I don't know. We'll tell you all about that stuff at the end of the episode. A little bit of a disclaimer about this podcast. All of the thoughts, opinions, statements, everything that we say are the opinions of Marco and I alone. They do not represent any thoughts, opinions, stances by any entity we are associated with. That includes, our full-time jobs. That includes Higher Gravity. So if there's an issue that you have with anything that we say about any of these podcasts or just anything in general, maybe you hate the fact that I like marble racing, come at me. Don't come at me anywhere else. And just want to give a huge shout out to Higher Gravity for their new Pride t-shirts.
Yeah, they're
great.
absolutely
Absolutely fantastic. There are only a few left here at Summit Park. I don't know if they have more in the back room. I'm sure they still have some at Northside, but check them out, buy them. They're absolutely amazing. With that being said, this is, for all intents and purposes, a craft beer podcast.
Yes.
And it wouldn't be a good one
Nope.
if we weren't drinking some craft beer.
That's right.
So, Marco, what are we sharing tonight? What do we have in our glasses?
We have an Italian-style Pilsner from Pipeworks. It is Alla Salute. I don't know. It's Italian. I don't know. Maybe I did that right.
Pronunciation is our strong point.
Yeah.
And that's as good as it's going to get.
That's it. Yeah. As good as it's going to get.
Yeah. And do you remember from one of the shows that we're going to be recapping later, do you remember what one of the things are that makes an Italian-style Pilsner versus just a regular Pilsner?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's the extra hand gestures
There we go.
when you go to make it.
Hand gestures are a flying. This isn't bad. I will say that the Westside Brewing's Since Italia Italian cider pills that's out, I think is better than this.
I couldn't say. I haven't had it.
But it's also fresher. If I can get my hands on a can or two, I will bring them in for you.
The can date on this one was 3/29.
Not terrible at all. No. Yeah, but if I can find some cans, or who knows, maybe they'll get an order of them in here at Higher Gravity Summit Park, and next Tuesday they'll be available.
Maybe.
But I'll try to make sure that you get a chance to try some of it. All right, let's talk, as we're supposed to be doing, about podcasts, specifically Cincinnati Craft Beer Podcasts. We have 3 podcasts and 1 YouTube show that we're going to be talking about today. So let's make sure that we both were able to, listen and watch all of them.
Okay.
Because
we had a little hiccup.
The last 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. So let's make sure that we are back on track. We have the Brews Travelers Outcast podcast, where they were at Happy to Brewing.
Yes.
Awesome. We have, I'm going to say, a new-ish one to our rotation. It's been around before, but it kind of went away for a while. Now it's back at the Dayton Brewcast.
That's right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
We have kind of a tie into that, the Weekly Pint, which used to not be a show. Now it is a show. All right. And then the YouTube show that we're going to talk about, because it ties in very closely to a podcast that we recap when we have new episodes, the Brew Skies Happy Hour Bar Stool Perspective YouTube show.
Yes.
All right, excellent. Where did you want to start tonight?
The Outcast podcast?
All right, let's do it. This was episode 24, where Quick Trip and the Cincy Brews Traveler went to Happy to Brewing in Anderson Township. They talked to John Madrill, who is one of the co-owners there. And this is a really interesting brewery because it is, I believe, for all, if you get into the numbers of the brewery, it's I guess it's considered a nano brewery. Nano brewery, microbrewery. I'm not entirely sure what numbers make up
nano.
which one. Nano. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very tiny, and it is inside the Mio's Pizzeria on Clough Pike in Anderson Township. Mm-hmm. A little bit of background on what the Brews Travelers Outcast podcast format is. They go to a brewery. They try to get someone from that brewery on their show. They ask them a list of kind of quick-hitting questions. You know, how many parking spaces do you have? Do you have live events? Are you kid-friendly? Are you pet-friendly? Do you have outdoor spaces? So you get all the information you could ever want to know before going to a brewery for the first time, which is absolutely fantastic.
Including how many breweries are within a 5-mile radius.
Yes, which is always interesting. Now, the breweries within a 5-mile radius that the Outcast podcast does, it's not driving miles. It is a 5-mile radius, kind of as the crow flies. So if you're looking at Google Maps, so from a top down, and you go out 5-mile radius.
Right.
So if you drive from that brewery to a brewery within 5 miles, you might actually be driving for 6 or 7 miles, because that's how roads work.
Right.
But you get a lot of that really good information, and then they end the episodes with talking about the different beers that they drank over the course of the show. They rate them based on the Untapped rating, so 0 to 5 stars.
Right.
And you get a really, really good, well-rounded picture of what this brewery is, who they are, what they like to do. And this episode was no different. This was absolutely fantastic. It wasn't the longest episode, so I don't think we're going to have a super long recap of this, because a lot of it's just going to be...
It was a decent timed episode.
Yeah,
it's just that they have had some that were almost double.
Sure, right. And it's not, to me, our goal for this podcast is we want to encourage you and make you interested in these shows so that you go out and listen to them. So if we tell you, hey, here are the questions that they asked Happy to, and these are the answers, here are the beers that they drank, and this is how they rated them.
We're giving it all away.
We're giving it all away, right. Why would you listen? That's not what we're about, so that's not what we're going to do. So we're just going to kind of give you teasers, which is what this recap is. They questioned... and they asked John this, and John had a pretty interesting area. He had a pretty interesting answer. Is this the smallest brewery in the Cincinnati area as a 3-barrel system? And they were saying, well, Fibonacci technically, I believe, is a little bit bigger than that, so they may be the smallest in the area. Now, I don't know.
He thought he was second smallest.
Second smallest? Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you try to follow all the different places, I think the Gnarly Gnome has mentioned that Mash Cult is starting up again. And I think that if that's the case, if you consider the Cincinnati area to include Northern Kentucky, which it should be,
sure.
I mean, that is Cincinnati. I'm sorry. It's just the south of the Ohio River side of Cincinnati. I think Mash Cult would be the smallest, but a 3-barrel system means they don't have space to have continual I'm wording this so terribly. They have flagship beers, but they're not always going to be on all the time because they're doing stuff in such small quantities.
Right. And go and listen and find out how many days a week they actually get to brew.
Yes, which was also an absolutely fantastic part of the conversation. It feels like the way they were describing the space, so some of the rapid fire questions about the space, it almost sounded speakeasy-esque.
Right.
There's no sign for the brewery. You just have to know when you go to Mio's, hey, by the way, if you go into this back room over here, there's a brewery back there. There's a tap room. You get to sit there and drink beer and eat pizza, and it's amazing, which is awesome because I still haven't been to Happy 2 or to that specific Mio's, which I guess, one and the same, but it's good to know when I'm heading out that way.
I've been once or twice.
Oh, have you? Cool.
But just once or twice.
Okay. How
It was neat. I mean, you walk in. I mean, it's a small bar area, and a couple
Yeah.
of beers on tap. Yeah.
Nice. Did it feel like a brewery when you were in the space?
No, it felt like it felt like a small bar inside of a pizza place.
But it still felt like. Did it feel like a separate space from the pizzeria? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious. Sometimes those things kind of blend together. One of the things that I thought was interesting about this conversation when they talked about breweries within a 5-mile radius, there are 4 other breweries within that 5-mile circle. Mount Carmel, Paradise, the OG Paradise location, 50 West, and Big Ash. So if you head out to the area, you can do a little bit of brewery hopping while you're in Anderson.
Yep.
You got the why and the how of Happy 2 Brewing, and like how they came to be in Mio's, which is really cool. And happy 5th anniversary to Happy 2 Brewing, which I didn't realize that they'd been around for that long. I follow them on social media. I don't remember seeing any posts about that. So if there was an event for that, I apologize that we missed it. I don't know. I feel like we don't have a ton to recap for this just because it is... Everything else we would recap would just be telling you exactly what they said. And we love the way that the Brews travelers tell the brewery story much better than we do. So what if I end this recap with a multiple choice question?
Okay.
All right, cool. We haven't done this in a little bit, so let's go ahead and see if people have listened, or maybe this will encourage them to listen. Where did the name Happy 2 come from? Which I will explain a little bit. The name of the brewery is not Happy like T-O or Happy T-O-O. It's Happy and the number 2. Where did the name Happy 2 come from? Was it A, it was an old employee's catchphrase? Was it B, John lost a bet with his brother on what the name of the brewery should be? Or was it C, it was on a fortune from a fortune cookie?
There's a D, Julia. It's when we have a multiple choice, you bring A, B, C, and I bring the D. So option D is they were actually going to call it Happy Deuce, but then someone stopped and said, wait a minute. Maybe we shouldn't name it that.
Yeah, I could see that being misinterpreted in more ways than one.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is the Outcast podcast is always a lot of fun to listen to because it gives you a lot of really good information about the brewery and about the beers that they drink. Listen to this episode. Listen to all their episodes, and let us know what you think. Reach out to us on social media and say, hey, I listened to the Outcast podcast because of you guys, and
You're happy
you were happy to listen to this particular episode.
The whole thing was trying to get to that point.
I had been saving up that joke for
7
like
minutes.
an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, longer than that because in our pre-production meeting, I'm like...
That's true.
I'm like, Marco,
She
I'm
had
going to do
this joke.
this. I have this joke. Just wait for it.
Yep. It was right there. It's like you were about to explode until you got to the joke.
Just like marble racing, Marco just kind of smiles and nods and somehow still puts up with my nonsense. Oh, they're actually showing the high jump. This is one of the Marble Olympics events on the TV now. I'm going to keep interrupting the podcast with, letting you know what's happening.
What are those, Brussels sprouts in the crowd there?
No, those are the Green Ducks fans.
Okay.
Poor Marco. All right, we're still good with our hand gesture Italian style pilsners. I don't know why I'm doing the hand motions here. No one can see what we're doing. What do you say we move on to the Dayton? Do we cheers for this?
Yeah.
Okay, the Dayton Brewcast.
Yeah. Dayton Brewcast. Of course, we're about to tell you why we call it the Dayton Brewcast.
Because the Gnarly Gnome has decided that the Dayton beer scene is more interesting than the Cincinnati beer scene. He's covered the Cincinnati beer scene for, almost 10 years now?
Yeah.
And he's like, I've seen all there is to see.
Move north towards Hamilton.
Until the newer breweries open later this summer, he's like, Cincinnati's just old to me. And now that I live in Hamilton, now that he is all the way up in Hamilton, he's practically in Dayton anyway.
The very tip top of Hamilton.
Like he's on the outskirts of what is that? Is that Yellow Springs right at the top of Dayton there, heading towards like
Sure. I don't know.
Give it another year or two, and we're gonna have the Columbus Brewcast.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
The Columbus Brew.
This was season 9, episode 5 with David Nilson, Final Gravity, Chocolate, and What's Up with Craft. They recorded.
What's up with Craft?
What's up with Craft? Nice. That fit in really, really well.
Okay.
They recorded at the Dayton location of Moeller Brew Barn, which is why this is the Dayton Brewcast, because Gnome decided, again, screw Cincinnati.
It's right across from the
north.
ballpark, the Dayton Mollers.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was not aware of that.
One of the few teams to be named after a tooth.
There's a reason there are only a few teams named for that.
Yeah.
This was a really, really cool episode.
The Ithaca Incisors.
Oh, my God. The Gahanna Gnashers. For like all the T.
Sure, yeah.
Ganache, G.
Yeah.
Once again, the disappointment.
Chocolate,
like I can.
Chocolate ganache.
Oh, nice.
How about that?
See, you're so much better at this than I am. And the sun is once again in my eyeballs.
eyeballs.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and run.
Back.
Let's go ahead and run through this while so I cannot be, blinded by the light. I don't know. Once again, the disappointment is extreme, and Anyway,
I'd send you to the park, but I think the sun is beating on you enough to where that's torture.
I'm already being tortured enough. David Nilson does a whole bunch of stuff. He is a beer blogger, writer, educator. He does a podcast called Bean to Barstool, which is, I've listened to a couple episodes. It is really, really neat, especially if you like chocolate and beer. I like both. It is right down my alley. Let's see, what else? He's an advanced Cicerone, so, given a little flex there.
Look at me, Louie.
Well, and he got that because he was like, well, I already have my Cicerone. I might as well go ahead and go for the advanced. And I'm like, who the hell does that who's not, like, I don't want to say working in the beer industry, because he, as a beer writer, I get, like, he does.
Yeah.
But he's not.
And he's a judge.
Yeah.
So he's very judgmental.
Incredibly judgmental. You could hear the judgment dripping off of every word that he said during this podcast. Mm-hmm. He had an article on Bell's Two-Hearted. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He had an article that they talked about for a few minutes about Bell's Two-Hearted.
Ah, the Deuce.
The Deuce. And Gnome said, I'm going to put a link to that article in the show notes.
Yeah, and how'd that go?
Guess what is not in the show notes? Now, there is a link to David Nilson's main website, which you can find this article in. So, you know what I think I'm going to do? In our show notes, I'm going to put a link directly to the David Nilson Bell's Two-Hearted article.
Take that, Gnome.
Absolutely. I'm going to take what Gnome said he was going to do, and I'm going to actually do it.
There you go.
Gnome's a busy guy. His life is always chaos. He does his best.
That's what he says.
But, I'm going to follow through with the promises that I'm making on this podcast. Let's see. I did go and search for the article, and I read the article. It is absolutely fascinating and brilliant, and such a ridiculously well-written article. I want people to read it, so I'm going to make sure that I link just directly to that article in our show notes. And I might repost it on social media, that type of thing. We'll see if I remember that part.
Okay.
He talked a bit about how to be serious about beer without coming across as being snobby about it.
Right.
Because I do think that that's sometimes a thin line to walk, to where you talk about something that you know a lot about and you're very passionate about, but sometimes it can come across as, kind of the look at me Louie, or the, well, look at all this stuff that I know, when
Right.
that's not your intent.
Right.
So
The conversation around that specific topic was interesting because they talked about, did we need to dumb things down when we talk about beer? And he really wanted to make sure to talk about it in a very educated and almost in an elegant way.
Right.
Which is cool, as long as you can deliver that information, which I feel he does, in a very relatable fashion.
Right. I've listened to and read either articles from other beer writers, podcasts from other people in the beer industry, and sometimes they do come across as just, I don't want to say pretentious, but they almost sound pretentious. Oh, these are the people that I hang out with. These are
Right.
the beers that they just handed me that are from their cellars that no one has ever seen before. And you're kind of like, okay, I get it, and that's cool, but it's not coming across as being relatable to someone who is just passionate about craft beer, but isn't really in the industry, if that makes sense. But again, there is that level, that echelon of craft beer drinkers, people in that scene. There's a space for everyone. But I did love that David was trying to find a way to make that space bigger, more inclusive, without coming across as like that weird beer snobbish thing. They talked a bit about how craft chocolate is a thing, and that was absolutely fascinating. And that tied into the Bean to Barstool podcast,
Right.
where he dives into the correlations between craft chocolate and craft beer, and how if you go to a craft chocolate and beer pairing, it's way more in-depth, or can be way more in-depth than just, oh, this chocolate tastes good with this stout or this porter. Again, it's hard to describe it in the podcast.
We have to say
that we have
porter
to do,
the way
but
he says porter. He goes, porter.
Porter, yes.
You did
Almost
porter.
like he's a bit of an English chap, but yeah, all good. Then he talked a bit about the Final Gravity zine that he's putting out, which he wants to be an outlet for the stories from the people that are in the industry that don't really have a home anywhere else. So not this is what I'm brewing, this is what's happening with our brewery. He wants it to be more, at least this is how it sounded to me, he wanted it to be more about the people's stories about beer than their brewery, their industry in general.
Yeah.
You can actually
The
pre-order.
unhoused brewery, the beer writers, the unhoused ones.
Right, exactly. You can actually pre-order the first episode of that zine, which is supposed to drop in either June or sometime this summer, at bean2barstool.com. You can subscribe to his Patreon, Bean to Barstool. I think it's patreon.com/Bean to Barstool. I could be wrong about that. Just go to bean2barstool.com. And as a Patreon subscriber at a certain tier, you get every single episode as they come out, like quarterly is what they're aiming for. It's something, one of the last talking points that I had on this episode, before I get to the multiple choice question that I
okay.
came up with, is I love how he wants to keep finding the fun things that made you, the global you, excited about beer to begin with. That's what he enjoys, that's what he loves, and that's what he's trying to pull from with the Bean to Barstool, the combination of craft chocolate and craft beer, and the Final Gravity zine with the stories from people in the industry that don't get told. I don't know, just the poems that that some brewers are writing,
Yes,
that never
poems.
get any attention because it's not about
The haikus.
we're brewing this beer
About
this
beer.
month. Exactly. I mean,
Do you
hey,
have a haiku about beer?
let's take a super quick break to let you ask ChatGPT to write a haiku about craft beer, and then we'll be back with that and a multiple choice question about Season 9, Episode 5 of the Dayton Brewcast. And
We have made it
back with a ChatGPT haiku about Cincinnati craft beer. Marco, what did AI, which Joe is afraid of, by the way,
Yeah.
what did it give us?
Do we have some very calming music or anything?
I can add some in post.
Okay.
Okay.
Hoppy Riverside, Cincinnati's Brews Cascade, crafted bliss resides.
Oh, that was good.
That's a
That
haiku
was
about
was
Cincinnati craft beer.
written by ChatGPT. AI is amazing.
Hey, you see what you did there
I apologize for nothing.
for the AI?
What I'm
answer.
what I'm also not going to apologize
Allen
for
Iverson.
is this multiple choice question about this episode of, get ready, the Dayton Brewcast.
Yes.
Cheers. Go ahead and
Cheers.
drink while I kind of talk and give you the question. What could be an article or a feature in the final Gravity zine? A, trends in beer. B, why is your teacher wearing shorts? Or C, limericks? It looks like, it's the balance obstacle here in the Marble Olympics while you're thinking of the D that you're about to bring us. Killed Marco. These are fascinating events, Marco.
Okay. Our D, Julia. It's option D. You know I bring the D. So option D is, what are the top 5 IPAs in America today?
Oh, damn. That's going to be a phenomenal article to read in the final Gravity zine, if that's something that they talk about. Did you have anything else on this episode of Cincy Brewcast or the Dayton Brewcast or the Cincinnati Brewcast? Fuck it, let's do it again. Cheers.
No, I don't have anything, Julia. I think we did it.
All right, cool. Well, are you good to keep on rolling through, or do you want to take a quick break? We have 2 more to go. We have the Weekly Pint, and we have the Brewcast Happy Hour Barstool Perspective left to cover.
I still have plenty of beer, but let's take a break.
Okay. All right, let's do it. We will be back in just a few, guys. The ice cream truck. We have Marble Olympics. We have the ice cream truck. We have just one of the best producers here at Higher Gravity. I mean, all the producers are absolutely fantastic here at Higher Gravity Summit Park. We have beautiful weather outside. We have the sun beating into my eyes, trying to keep me humble.
Right.
You know what the only thing that can be better than all of this is?
What, talking about the Weekly Pint?
Hell yeah, talking about the Weekly
Okay.
Pint. Yeah. I like how you're shaking your head. I'm like, people can't hear that over the podcastery. So
Yeah.
let's talk about episode 170 of the Weekly Pint, which,
Okay.
if you don't know by now, it is the Gnarly Gnomes Monday night live show. It streams on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. I think that's it. I could be wrong. It could be on 1 or 2 other streaming services. But you have chat. You can actually participate in the conversation with the different topics that the gnome wants to talk about that Monday. And it's also an excuse to just virtually have a drink with other people. It started during COVID, as, you know, we can't get together to drink, so let's do it virtually. And it just continued into just a wonderful mini community. It's kind of the same core group of people that are on every Monday. It's 9:30 at night-ish, depending on, you know, when he can get the children to go to bed or break away from, you know, family duties.
The cheering.
The cheering. Sometimes you hear them like romping around upstairs, and you know, it's all wonderful. But it is the best part of my week outside of Tuesdays being here with you, because again, it's just a nice, fun, casual, like, let's hang out together and talk about beer news, or if there aren't really any beer news stories going on, just what's going on in the gnome's life, you know, kind of behind the curtain, that type of thing. And this week was no different. I will say that the intro to this week's episode of the Weekly Pint was the most dramatic start ever. I loved it, and I think that he should play around with different variants of that intro, because my God, it started, I'm like, oh, what is this?
Yeah.
This is exciting.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you haven't listened or just rewatched on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, you need to do it. 100%. There is no reason not to. It typically goes like 30 to 45-ish minutes.
Yep. Not
Not going to take up too much of your day.
It's good structure to it. You know, he's had a couple of different variations or iterations on the structure of the pod, but he's dialing it in.
Yeah, he tries to have an idea of here are some beer news events or just events in general, be it his life with his different businesses to talk about or things in the beer world. The title of this one kind of tells you a little bit. Well, the title of all of them tell you a bit about what he tries to hit upon. Acquisitions, unacquisitions, brand families, and chicken beer were the topics that he touched on, in addition to some other ones that kind of happened organically because of the live chat that you were able to participate in.
Yep.
There was a little bit of talk about this week's episode of the Dayton Brewcast with David Nilson. So if you hadn't listened to that, we'll cheers because I said it wrong. I mean, might as well.
That's fine. But yeah, it comes up.
Yeah.
And he will usually talk about that if,
He gives you a little bit of
Brewcast.
like, hey, Brewcast came out. This is what it's about. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it, here's like some very high-level talking points, not as in-depth as you or I get into the recaps, because he leaves that for us. He's a good guy like that.
Right. Leaves it for us.
He talked a little bit about the 16 Lots Southern Outpost opening, which my Josh and I went down to, so I have my own opinions on that.
You going to give them?
No.
Okay,
No.
good.
It's a cool space.
Opinion one.
That's opinion one. And maybe in a bonus or a Patreon, I'll go more in-depth about stuff, but listen to Weekly Pint for, Gnome's take on it, which is not entirely inaccurate. He talked about some of the other upcoming openings, such as New Ales and New Ales' new location.
Right.
And Fabled Brewworks still coming up.
Opening, yeah.
Touched on a little bit about the Human Rights Campaign removing or suspending AB InBev's score, employee score, which if you're not familiar with that...
Yeah, they didn't downgrade it. They removed it.
Yeah, it just is no longer applicable because of certain other things going on. I don't know how political we want to get in this particular, recap. But
How about not at all?
that works for me. And the gnome didn't get too political or too into the weeds about it either on his touching point, but it is something that I'm glad that he mentioned. I'm glad that he brought it up. So one of the topics was acquisitions and unacquisitions, which you might be going, what the hell does that mean?
Right.
Wow, I am having trouble with that word. Appalachian Mountain Brewing was bought out by, I'm just going to say to keep things simple, AB InBev a while back. They were recently able to buy themselves back from AB InBev.
You mean they are
Back as a craft brewery in Virginia, which was also touched upon a bit by what we're going to talk about next, the Brew Skies Happy Hour Barstool Perspective. I thought that was really cool. You never really hear about these small craft breweries that were bought out by bigger conglomerates or like big beer, macro beer, AB InBev, whoever it may be, coming back. This could be like one of the first success stories. Maybe it's just the first that's made it into the news. Maybe there are others. I don't know.
Well, you had Ballast Point.
True.
That was kind of a shock. It was a shock when their value just took a nosedive and hit the toilet.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And then, but they weren't bought by the original ownership group. That's where it's different.
It's below. Yeah. Okay. So similar, but not entirely the same story.
Right.
Yeah. There was another part of the Weekly Pint where he talked about expanding brand families, such as Dale's Pale Ale now is expanding the Dale's brand to have a light lager.
I always called it Dale.
Ooh, getting fancy with the pronunciations, like going to the Target or the Crochet.
Yeah.
The crowbar. Yeah, I mean, you can fancify
that
any
Pitbull
of
would
this.
say it. It would go Dale.
There we go. Some of the other examples that they touched on for brands expanding or brand families expanding, if you're not sure exactly what that means, Truth. Ryan Geist Truth. Now they have Juicy Truth.
Right.
And who knows, maybe eventually they're going to have a non-alcoholic version called Lie or Partial Truth, or, who knows, something tied into that. That could be fun.
Yeah.
We all talked about that.
Half-truth.
They're half-truth, absolutely. The possibilities are endless. Chicken beer. I kind of don't want to touch on that because I want you to listen, or either listen to the podcast version of this episode or just watch it to really understand chicken beer and why my opinions mirrored Gnome. Not like I was.
I agree.
Well, I guess
You gotta listen. You gotta watch.
Would mirrored be the opposite, or would mirrored be the same? Because it's kind of flip. It's the same as Gnomes.
How about you echo?
We echo. Yes. This is why you are the best co-host in podcast land, Marco.
No, you are.
And then debatable. And then he talked a bit about going to Alchemy Fest in Northern Kentucky, which seemed like a lot of fun, but there were a couple social media posts that he made that made me think that there are some additional stories that he just didn't get around to telling. But craft cocktails in Cincinnati are booming, and there are some amazing cocktail artists, mixologists out there that
I thought everybody was trying to turn lead into gold.
That would have been probably better for the economy. But,
like in Hudson Hawk. You remember Hudson Hawk?
I do not.
You don't?
No.
The Bruce Willis flick?
Nope, never saw it.
Wow.
Sorry.
Go watch Hudson Hawk.
Again, the disappointment. It's overflowing in this episode. The Weekly Pint is always so much fun because, again, you can call in and talk to everyone live. You can chat with everyone live.
What's the guy who's in CSI Miami, the redhead guy?
Oh my God, I can picture him.
And he had to open every episode.
Yeah! The sunglasses?
Yeah, with the
God
sunglasses.
Damn, what is his name?
And he'd always have to stop and say, looks like he was on fire. And then just like...
Oh my God, I can picture him, but his name is failing me. Oh my God.
And you're the one who would yell at everybody else.
I know, I would be screaming at everyone else. It's different when it's our podcast. Totally different story than when it's anyone else's.
All right.
David Caruso.
There it is.
Oh, hey. Marco was just about to, he was on his phone, I'm going to answer this.
I was going to give you 3 Davids.
Who were the Davids? Tell me that.
It's too late.
No, I want to know who were the...
No.
David Nilson, David Bowie,
all right,
and David Lee
Caruso.
Roth. Oh, well, okay.
You have David Lee Roth.
Well, because then you would bring the D and give me the D. Wait, hold on. God damn it. And this is why we can't have nice things. All right, so I did have a multiple choice question for this episode of the Weekly Pint.
Okay. I might still bring the D.
All right, let's find out. What is according to this episode, what is the worst kind of dog? A flying dog, a drinking dog, or a brew dog?
Oh, or what about option D, Julia? Here I am bringing the D. How about the up dog?
Wait, what's up dog? Hey! And now all of our listeners are disappointed.
Yeah.
Yep, you're welcome.
Yeah.
We have one show left to talk about, the Brewcast Happy Hour Barstool Perspective, which is their weekly recap of beer news, national, global beer news. Do you need to take a quick break? You good to go for this last little bit?
Yeah, let's take a minute.
Okay. We will be right back. I'll tell you what.
What?
I'll tell you what. These old episodes of the Marble Olympics are amazing. Such nostalgia for the old teams and how well or how poorly they did. More people need to be into marble sports. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
All right. So with that bit of absolute nonsense, what do you say we talk about the last show of the night, Brewcast Happy Hour, and their weekly YouTube video episode show, whatever you want to call it, Barstool Perspective, featuring none other than Brett Coleman Baker and, as you say, Michael Bring the D Morgan. I have to say, these episodes are amazing. I know we talked about this last week. They have such amazing chemistry in the way that they play off of each other in conversation.
It's really great.
I was cracking up this entire episode.
Really good episode.
It was fantastic.
Michael brings fashion sense again.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And Brett has the phenomenal hair. He's like the
Right.
Becky with the good. He's the Brett with the good hair.
Brett with the good hair.
Week in and week out. I'm glad they now have a video element to what they're doing, so that you can just see exactly how phenomenal these two men are. And I say that with all like as genuine as I can. They talked about plumbing skills. And the quality of the coffee that came from the industrial coffee machine that they spent 3 days installing the plumbing for to make what they were calling not a great cup of coffee. I just want to say I'm not entirely...
Hold on.
Okay. Okay.
Reckless speculation.
Or as I like to say, the reckless speculations.
Okay.
I don't believe their coffee was coffee.
Uh-oh.
What was in their mugs
Uh-oh.
was, I don't know. I mean, caffeine affects people in different ways.
Right.
However, I don't quite know that I trust their coffee or their plumbing skills. So my
Okay.
reckless speculation is that they had just full 20-ounce mugs of speed and that they were just...
Speed?
I don't know. I mean, I guess technically caffeine is a type of speed. It's an upper.
Yeah.
If you want to get, into the weeds about it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Ask David Nilson.
That's a good... Oh, maybe that could be the next one. Instead of chocolate and coffee... Or chocolate and
and
coffee.
beer.
Chocolate
You can do coffee.
Or speed and beer.
That's it. Speed.
I'm stuck on coffee. I don't know why. To get into some of the things that they talked about, this is a show that they do, as I already said, where they talk about some of the local, national beer and alcohol-related pieces of news. Apparently, RTDs, ready-to-drink cocktails, are a very carefully thought-out purchase in stores.
Calculated.
There's no impulse buy section for ready-to-drinks.
Click list full of RTDs.
Yeah. Like you need to, when you see them, from what they came across, and I'm not sure what the articles were that they read. Well, it seems like Brett's doing most of the research, and Mike is just kind of reacting to
Bringing
the
the
research.
D, Morgan?
He's just bringing the reactions and the D. I mean, it's all one and the same anymore. Michael's rant on the ready to drinks was absolutely amazing.
It was good. It was good. It was like 20 years ago with the whole hot dogs and buns.
I can't say that I disagree with either the hot dogs and the buns thing, or the whole ready to drink, and who is the biggest consumer of the ready to drink cocktail. Holy crap! Absolutely amazing. Absolutely.
It was a good time.
Tears in my eyes.
It was funny.
From trying not to laugh out loud
It was good.
at work
But there's a lot that's very relatable.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It gives you really good information. The way they present that information is so entertaining and so... It's perfect. I mean, it really is. It's the way that I want to consume my news, is with a shot of humor.
Yeah.
Tied into it. Let's see. What else was there in this episode? There was a surprising detail given on what country drinks the most gin.
That was interesting.
That was very interesting.
Yeah.
I was unaware of that.
Julia, you like gin?
It's okay, but I don't know if I've had really good gin yet. Like, it's always been like, okay, this is all right. But again, maybe I just haven't had high enough quality to really understand and appreciate what I've been drinking. How about you?
I used to drink a lot of gin. Got away from it for, almost 20 years. I had a little gin recently, and a place I don't work at has a barrel-aged gin, which is pretty good.
Nice.
But no, I don't. But not by any volume sort am I a gin drinker.
Okay.
I can have a little gin every now and then.
Okay.
Fine.
All right. Actually, I only had 2 other talking notes about this episode, because it's like...
That's all I had.
They're between 22 and 25 minutes. It's not a lot of time, and we're trying to be a lot better about not making our recaps match or exceed the episode time frames. Next talking note that I had, there was an absolutely brilliant quote from Mike. Nostalgia is a lot of people's favorite flavor.
That was a wonderful.
And that cascaded...
Hold on, Julia. I'm going to write that down.
Okay, yeah. So, got the...
Nostalgia
is a lot of people's favorite flavor.
Got it.
And it's 100% true.
Yeah.
People like stuff that's nostalgic because of the memories they have of it from the past. Even if it was terrible in the past, for whatever reason, they're like, oh, but this existed in a different phase of my life, so I should really be embracing it now in this new phase of my life. It was really cool conversation, touched on a lot of different subjects and a lot of different news stories that they brought up throughout this episode, so it wasn't a one-note sentiment. And then they had some Cincinnati chili hot takes.
You know what I used to... It's talking about nostalgia.
Yeah.
You know the little pixie sticks?
Yeah.
Okay, those were nice, right? Except for the fact that they were paper. And so you put your mouth on it, and by halfway through, you couldn't get the damn sugar through the fucking pixie stick.
You had to keep tearing off small, pieces of it.
And you were in, like, third grade, and, you're like, mother...
Or... Like, I knew some people in school that, they would just,
snort it?
bite off the... Well,
Find the best school pixie stick rail.
Back to the top of the toilet tanks.
No, but then did you remember the ones that were
the huge, the 3 foot long...
Three foot long ones?
That were plastic, so it actually worked.
So much better.
So much better. So much more sugar that, holy shit, we did not need. We did not need
Another thing
that.
nostalgic, fruit stripe gum. Tasted great about 10 seconds.
Not even 10 seconds. 10 seconds is being generous.
So fruity and tasty.
And it's
not
gone.
Anymore.
And it's gone. It's like someone, farted flavor out into the air, and now it's gone.
Right.
Terrible. But yeah, nostalgia, such a good little kind of sidecar conversation that they had about that. Cincinnati chili hot takes. I can't say that I disagree with a lot of them.
No.
Let
me tell you this. Michael is correct.
Of it. Yeah, I never thought of it.
You know what that
that
means?
No, what?
I'm correct.
Oh, damn it!
I'm correct.
I just admitted that Marco's right.
Marco's right.
Marco's...
Holy bleep! Marco is right.
So we're bleeping ourselves because there is an adorable small child right outside of the windows, and the windows are open.
I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, it's fine.
I should have closed the windows.
I'm keeping an eye out for you.
Keep it rated
It's
R.
good. It's fine. They're sitting outside of a tap room. If they don't understand that there's a chance of stuff being
Vulgarity.
said, it's
urinating on the floor.
No, not that. Oh my God.
Well, they let
now we're
dogs
back
in
to the
here.
worst
Every
kind of
now and
dog.
then-
Anyway.
Every now and then, someone urinates on the floor.
Oh my God.
And the dog looks at it, is like, "Why did you do that?" Right?
But yes, you are right. And the way that Mike presented his Cincinnati chili hot take is a lens that I never considered it through.
Well, keep in mind he's an author.
He's not sure.
He's a professor.
Right.
He's a lawyer.
Mm-hmm. And he's unemployed.
Unemployed. But he was all those things. I mean, unless he's somehow
he's still brilliant. I mean, my God.
Yeah, unless somehow he's getting a 1099 from Blue Sky's Barstool Happy Hour or something.
Well, a lot of people owe him a lot of money.
This does come up as well.
Yeah, just Mike, I hope you get that money. Marco and I are backing you for whatever forms you need to fill out to get those royalties or those checks for these things that you have invented. Which again, watch this.
Let's make posters.
Episode.
Well, let's make social media posters.
Okay.
Of people holding up, pay Mike his money.
Okay, I'm down.
Okay.
All right, I had one other note and then a multiple choice question because
got another one.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was on a roll, so I'm like, everything we talk about tonight, I've got to have a multiple choice. They, and this is something else that I had to laugh about. They got back on their the only thing people like is sugar tirade.
That's playing.
They're
the
not
hits for
wrong.
them.
Yeah, they're not wrong.
Yeah.
And man, it would not be an episode of either the Brew Skies Happy Hour podcast or Barstool Perspective. There've only been 3 episodes.
That's like
of Barstool
ESPN
Perspective.
saying who's the greatest, MJ or LeBron.
Exactly.
They got to go back to that over and over and over again.
They always go back to the only thing that we like is sugar. And they were talking about wineries and, all kind. It was great. I love the tie-in, and I love how, I don't want to say mad they get about the sugar thing, but just how passionate they get about the sugar thing every single time. It It was great. If you guys are not subscribed to the Brew Skies YouTube channel, you absolutely need to be, because that's the only way that you're going to see these weekly beer news and non-alcoholic news shows.
That's right.
So follow them, sign up for notifications, all that good stuff. Was there anything else you had before we got to the multiple choice question?
No, let's do it, Julia.
All right. This is an important one. What dumb beer name did Brett find? Was it A, Taco Tuesday Spicy Pineapple Margarita High ABV Hard Kombucha? Was it B, This is the beer that tastes like a beer for people who just want to drink a beer? Or was it C, The Gadget?
Julia, it was a D. Here I am bringing the D.
I'd expect nothing less.
With the family right behind me. Option D is, did Elon Musk just quote The Princess Bride?
Oh, that was so bad. Such a bad name. Not that that's the answer necessarily. Oh, such a bad name.
Somebody probably named the beer. That might be the real
be it. You got to listen. Well, you can't just listen. You have to watch. You can listen with YouTube in the background, but YouTube is the only way to check out this episode. Do it and send them an email or reach out to them on social media to maybe have your question to them featured as their question of the week, which, okay, this is a little bit of beef that I have with them and this particular show.
The beef.
They're like,
where's the beef, Julia?
I'm going to tell you where the beef is right damn now. So end of the episode, Brett's wrapping stuff up and he goes, and so now for our email question of the week. And I'm like, what is this? You guys have never done this before. And they're acting like, oh, we've been telling you guys how to submit questions and da-da-da-da.
Never.
No, absolutely not.
Never.
I'm sorry, but point me to the social media post or to the 2-second separate YouTube video to where you said to submit questions.
Are you saying they're making up hype?
Possibly. Okay. It's my truth.
That's good.
They can correct me. So, Brett and Mike, invite me. I'm at Higher Gravity Northside somewhat regularly.
Here,
either come up here to Summit Park on a Tuesday, or let me know when you guys are going to be down at Northside, and we will discuss if you did not actually promote your question of the week to your listeners outside of this specific episode. But if you have a question for them that you want them to maybe answer on the air, email them to them, info@brewskies.beer, or reach out to them via social media, and Truth Beer Pod may be asking them a question, or maybe we won't. Maybe we just are too upset about this whole situation, and
right.
Yeah, we'll find out in a couple weeks. That's all that I had for this episode of Barstool Perspective. Marco, was there anything else that you had?
No, that's it.
All right.
Continue with the great fashion sense, gentlemen.
Absolutely, and the fantastic hair.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, is it between
Amazing.
The two of them?
It's
a solid head of hair.
You can't look away.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you liked what we did tonight, if you liked my random talks about marble racing, which they're now doing the boating, down the creek event right now here at Higher Gravity Summit Park. If you like that and possibly even enjoyed our podcast and YouTube video recaps, let us know. We are at Truth Beer Pod on all the social media platforms. Like, subscribe, review, share, all that good stuff. The most important thing really is telling a friend, family member, tell someone about our show if you like the way that we recap these episodes. We would really appreciate it. If you want to send us an email about anything that we said or maybe didn't say, you never know.
You never know.
Our email address is truthbeerpod@gmail.com. And if you have it in your heart to send us a couple bucks, because web hosting and podcast hosting is coming up for renewal here shortly, you can donate to us for us to buy a fresh pint of beer to drink while we're recording the show, or to contribute to the things that actually cost us money to make the show. truthbeerpod.com. All the links are at the top of the page. If you have any complaints about what we're doing, at Raging Hop on Twitter. He will handle all of that information. He will take your complaints. He does. File them away and eventually let us know about them. Other than that, Marco.
Julia.
What are you going to be doing next Tuesday?
I plan on being here, Julia, doing the same thing, recapping this week's Cincinnati-based craft beer podcast.
Sounds great. I'll see you there. Cheers.